Hey, welcome back to Promise of Plenty. My name is Keith, and that's Nate. And here we are, talk about a little flesh and blood. It has been a little while. Took a little break for the holidays, staying busy. But here we are again. There's a bunch of news that dropped this week. Got a new expansion on the way. A couple bits about next year's tournament schedule. So we'll get to hitting all those things. Nate, how are you doing? How was your Thanksgiving?
Good. How about you?
It's all right. We had some family in. Kept the house pretty hectic, but yeah, definitely too loud to record anything.
We were not playing Flesh and Blood at our family Thanksgiving, unfortunately, as much as
No.
I would have liked to.
She's like, "Hey guys, check out this website I made. It's pretty cool, huh?"
It's like that. It's like that meme. Have you ever seen that? It's like, do you have a moment to talk about Flesh and
Oh
Blood?
yeah, 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 yeah. The the people knocking on the door holding the box. Yeah, it's a pretty good one.
That's a good one. I like it.
Yeah. All right. Talishar. Big news recently. Made some changes. Why don't you tell us about it?
Yeah, so it's been a pretty busy couple of weeks. We just went open source, which I think is pretty cool. It's kind of the way that it was always meant to be, and we finally did the research and things that we needed to do to get it done. I think there's going to be a lot of benefits. We've also got a couple of other folks on the team that are working on making it easier to set up the dev environment. If anybody's familiar with Docker, that's something that we're working
Hmm.
on getting set up. That's actually on my to-do list today, as they asked me to be kind of like the guinea pig to make sure that somebody somebody that has no idea what they're doing would be able to make it work, and I was determined to be the perfect guinea pig for that for some reason. I don't know why. Um,
You got all the time in the world, no problem, right?
Well, I think they wanted the old guy that is the dinosaur with technology to make sure that he can
Oh,
figure it out.
Docker, all that's newer
That's
to
me.
you. Okay.
No, seriously, I've never used. I don't even know what Docker is, to be honest. I just know it's some kind of. Do you know? Is that why you're laughing?
I've used
Okay.
it. Yeah.
I just
Cool.
know it's some kind of like environment, like thing. Okay, I don't want to make myself look dumb, so.
Anyway, so someone who has is interested in programming or even learning or just wanting to contribute to Talishar with art, bug fixes, reviews, whatever, they can go to talishar.net, find the link to the Discord, and then get in there and ask all their questions, get hooked up, find get all the links and everything to get that set up.
Yep,
Cool.
and it's on GitHub too. If you want to see the source code, it's just GitHub/Talishar/Talishar. We also created an organization on GitHub to hold the code, which is kind of cool because now we can use all the organization tools
Nice.
to manage things. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Oh, the other big thing that changed, man, it's been too long since we've done this, Keith. I just started introducing object-oriented programming to Talishar.
Okay.
That's the lack of that was one of the biggest, I guess, complaints that folks had.
Yeah, that
Uh,
probably showed a little bit of your age too. All the kids now, it's all object oriented.
well, yeah. So it should have been the rage when I went to school too. I don't know if everybody knows, but I actually started out as an electrical engineer, and so I learned programming from programming like PLCs and like industrial circuits
Oh
in
boy.
assembly language.
Oh boy, yeah. Down nitty gritty. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean it's been a learning experience, but I was able to figure out a way to make object-oriented programming kind of compatible with what's already there.
Hmm.
So I was pretty excited about that, and I'm looking forward to continuing to improve on that.
Mm-hmm.
Other big things. Sorry, Keith, this is going to be a long one.
Well, hold on. If hearing about programming talk is interesting to you, please comment on the video and and let Nate know.
and like and subscribe and tweet it to your friends and put mailers on people's cars.
Okay, okay. But yeah, what has coding, what fruit has it wrought? And man, you pumped out a little single player thing. I've got it up on screen here.
Yeah, have you tried it?
I have not yet. Dude, I'll get
I
there. I'll
know
get
you're
there.
busy. Me too. So the single player thing, it's very heavily based on Slay the Spire, the roguelike deck builder games that is seemingly spawned a whole genre at this
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
There's also another one that I just started playing recently. It's there's one in Legends of Runeterra. I think it's called Path of Champions or something like that. But I've been playing that one. One of my favorite games of all time is called Inscription. That's another one. I
Hmm.
really like that genre, and I felt just inspired to create one for Fab because I felt like the game mechanics really lent themselves to that kind of structure. And so I just kind of put it together as a little bit of a demo. It's not something I'm probably going to have a huge amount of time to work on in terms of content. So this is another one where if you want to contribute to the Talishar project, but you don't necessarily know how to code, let me know and you can come up with encounters. We need cards. We need people to kind of figure out what the AI needs to do in a very simple way, kind
Hmm.
of like a single player mode on a board game, if you've ever played one of those. It's designed to be a very simple kind of AI so that you can do it yourself. It is not the felt table level AI where you can just give it a
Hmm.
deck. Yeah, I don't have the capability to do that right now, at
Cause yeah,
least. So
you guys have a like test dummy up if you want to just like run through your deck and just pull hands
there's
and
the
throw
yeah,
cards, right?
so
But this is
yeah, there is
a
that
different
single
way to
player
do it.
mode. But literally all it does is it has a zero cost weapon that will attack you every turn just so you can
Mhm.
block if you want. There's basically no AI. That's all it does.
Right.
And yeah, and the roguelike kind of built on that a little bit. It makes it a little bit more robust. So um, it can play attack actions, it can play like attack reactions, defense reactions, things like that,
Yeah.
but only in a very prescribed kind of way. Like
Okay. So it needs a
it'll
little
say,
intelligence, needs a new deck. Yeah. This is something that I'm sure really excites a lot of people because, you know, people come to Flesh and Blood, Magic, all those games too because they like lore, they like stories, they like casual play, single player experiences or PVE experience. They promise there's going to be PVE for Fab someday. We'll see how that actually works out. But if it's, you know, three, four people playing against some AI with a deck like Champions, Marvel Champions, or any of those other games, that'd be very interesting. So, you know, you got people who
yeah,
are
I
interested in that and they could contribute to this if they wanted to, making it better.
yeah, that's one of the reasons that I wanted to make this is I think Fab really needs some more casual outlets for play.
Hmm.
Because right now the organized play is excellent, but it's almost too excellent. I mean,
Yep.
even within our local store, new players will come in and they'll bring a pre-made blitz deck, and it's really easy to just get totally smoked against some of the more competitive players. And this, like even the store I play at is not very competitive. I think it's probably the least competitive store of the
Yeah.
five in the area.
But the ceiling on Fab is so high. You start out with one of those precon blitz decks, and just even someone else who's spent 5 seconds net decking on Fabry to upgrade the precon will blow them out. Like,
Yeah,
you know, the precons do a good job of it's almost wider instead of efficient. Like it shows you like one or two of each of the cards, so you can
Mhm.
see what those heroes have, and you get a little taste of it each turn. But yeah, the efficiency is not there to actually, do well.
Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to the single player mode that they're coming out with. I think it'll be really good for the growth of Fab because we really need a kinder, gentler way to onboard people and let people engage with the
Yeah,
game, I
yeah.
think.
The
Um,
communities can kind of come up with their own. I think the commoner format is pretty balanced if you or easier to get new people in if you create an environment where I've got 10 commoner decks and I'm just going to give you one because they're commons and bulk and no one cares that. So we give you 5 decks and then you can pick one. We can all play around with them. Just having a community set up that is more welcoming to people and keeping them. We were discussing in the Discord, yeah, the most competitive store in the area, like these guys place, top 64, top 100 at the Pro Tour, and you bring in a new player, yeah, they're just not gonna do well against them unless those players are the tryhards are not trying hard that week.
yeah, but it's hard to ask them to not do that and for the sake of trying to build a community, right? And so that's where I think it would be
Yeah,
nice just to have other ways to engage where you could kind of work together towards a common goal, and then they can watch what you're doing and say like, oh, I don't want to block every single damage that
right,
that
right.
gets thrown at me,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And so yeah, I don't know. I'm personally really looking forward to that. I come from a Magic background, as I'm sure a lot of people did, and I was a commander player. I tried to play standard, but I just couldn't compete. I'm more casual.
yeah, yeah.
And so
Even limited play, like the rate that sets come out with Magic, it's like to even compete with limited, you got people who are following all the spoilers, following all the strategies. People build decks in their head for how to draft ahead of time and show up at a pre-release to dominate it. And so that's even a little harder for new players. I do like limited for Fab in general. Limited, kind of evens the playing field if everybody's building a fresh new deck. But the fundamentals too, like it's still a very big difference. I last time we did a limited draft, I tried a new hero and I got stomped. I tried playing 5 for the first time and my deck did nothing because I didn't understand the sequences I was supposed to be looking
well,
for.
and the reason for that is because, Fab really it doesn't just reward deck building and owning the legendaries. It rewards knowing not only what your class wants to do, but also what your opponent's class wants
Right,
to do.
right. The breadth
Uh,
of knowledge to know, like, shoot, that swarming Gloomveil coming in. I really should block that out.
and I think Fab like it requires that or it rewards that much more than some other games.
Hmm.
Like Magic, you can play like red deck wins and honestly that deck doesn't care at all what
Hmm.
the opponent's deck is
Right.
trying to do.
That magic can
Uh
easily turn into a game of solitaire. Yeah.
Yeah, or like rock paper scissors. There's depth to competitive Magic. I personally don't think that it's as much as Fab, and I would argue that for hours, but
Yeah. Yeah.
and I probably will like anger people just for saying that, but that's okay. Because Fab has those kind of linear decks too, right? Like the Cheerios Briar deck
Yeah. That was just
is a
like
really good
go.
example.
Just like draw. And Phi can be that way now too. If your opponent doesn't know which cards to block, you're just
Uh
like still drawing, just play. It's everything has go again.
Fi toes dangerously close to that
Hmm.
line for me, but
And
I
now
think it's not.
the Katsu deck coming out with Dynasty.
I don't think the Katsu deck is a real deck.
We'll see. We'll see. I haven't played against it yet, so
People tried it out a lot, but I haven't seen it recently.
okay.
Um, I've seen a lot of Kanos for some reason. I don't know why.
Everybody's trying to play
Um,
Brainstorm.
including me. I love that deck, by the way.
Hey, it's Keith breaking in here with a little shout out for the Fab community. Why don't you take a look over at Sloop Dupe and check out his videos? Very informative, very well done, high production value. I believe he's actually a video professional in his day job, so it really shows in his content and quality. So you can find him on YouTube and all the other places. Check him out. Tell him that Keith and Nate at Promise of Plenty sent you. Thanks. But hey, Dynasty came out what like a few weeks ago, but that's old news. Now we're already
Is it
going
old
off to
news?
see. We're going on to Outsiders.
Are we done talking
Hey,
about Talishar?
yeah. If I don't cut you off, man, you'll be there all
That's true. I would talk all
day.
day.
It's our. We're already 16 minutes in. Gotta.
Okay.
Outsiders, releasing March 24th, 2023. I do like how Fab has started to gauge the pace of things a little bit better. I don't need spoilers for the set yet, but we get through Dynasty, we handle that, we do the World Championships, and then boom, hey guys, here's your next set. It's coming. Take a look at this crazy. What is this a mechanologist kind of person? So we're going to the pits. The pits is the home of Azalea, the home of Arachne, um, Cavdane. Basically, the pits is underneath metrics, and they're just like the garbage heap subterranean world. Wow, this is cool. So there's the full art. Oh, I don't have it pulled up. There's a full art of this background here, and this she's holding a flamethrower, and she's like blasting it, and that's what's holding her off the ground.
Yeah, so personally would have rather they held this off for another couple of weeks, maybe like until the new year. I still haven't fully processed Dynasty yet. I don't know
You
where
can
you're
go
at
do
on
that, but
that,
now
but
you got a little bit hint about the future.
huh?
There'll be plenty of events for Dynasty. There you go.
Well, yeah, I know, but like, I just ordered cards for my brainstorm deck, right? And they're not even here yet, and now we are like,
Well,
I
you'll
don't
have
know.
3 months to play them. Don't worry about it. You
That's
got
fair.
3 months. So
Um,
all right, I
that's
got
fair.
the I
I
got
don't know.
the ICV2 article up. So this is a standalone set. So you get your limited playback, all that, and definitely the full-on booster sets perform better sales-wise, perform better with excitement than the supplementals. Um, so yeah, they needed to. I think that's part of it too. Dynasty being a supplemental, not as exciting in general as far as the future of the game and
Speak
all
for
that.
yourself.
James
I'm
White.
excited by Dynasty.
Yeah, it's cool. It's good. It's good. Uh, Fans of booster drafting in for a real treat. The good old fashioned melee combat. What does that mean?
I think it means like Welcome to Wraith, right? That set
No
was all
arcane?
about, huh?
Is it just no arcane damage?
So, I mean, there's no arcane, but probably no illusionist, because illusionists are weird. Like, that's not melee combat. Ranger is not melee combat. Well, probably. Mechanically, I feel like it kind of is, but thematically it isn't. So probably no ranger, no illusionist, no wizard, no rune blade, question mark.
Yeah, I don't know. There was a different
Um,
article where the person writing the article mentioned this was a good opportunity to bring back a light illusionist hero and a shadow rune blade because of those heroes being legend. But I don't know that they've confirmed that anywhere, that that's actually happened.
Yeah, that sounded like speculation to me. I mean, they said it was an opportunity, and it
Hmm.
is. That doesn't mean that it's going to happen.
Right. James White at at Worlds did say those heroes would be coming in 2023, but I'd pick the supplemental in the middle of the year as probably the time they bring back because that's easier to
Yeah,
slot somebody in like they did with Starvo.
but he also said that he said that it would come sooner than we think, right? Or sooner than we would think. There was another thing.
Okay.
So we might see something. It'd be really. So who did we lose? It was Starvo, Chain, Prism,
Right. And
Vis, and Blitz.
yeah, but I don't I think Starvo's gone. They're not worried about replacing that. In a
Yeah.
way, Starvo was the follow up for Bravo, um, Vanilla Bravo, or whatever they were calling it, OG Bravo. Where
I mean,
if he had been Living Legend by then Starvo would have been his replacement.
yeah.
So we're
Well,
looking
I
at a
don't. So
replacement for Chain, and we're looking at a replacement for Prism.
So I agree with you, but I don't. So I don't think that Bravo necessarily needed a replacement, right? Because the whole idea is to make sure that you don't. Well, no, I guess you would because you have his specialization cards. But the idea is so that cards don't get lost, basically, right? Like
Hmm.
right now, you just can't play Light Illusionist cards
Hmm.
or Shadow Runeblade cards in CC. You just can't do it because there's
Right.
no hero.
The biggest difference with this with the Starvo and Bravo thing is they had a hero who with no talent, Bravo, and then added a talents, and that was so not really a replacement, but more of just like here's a different version.
It's expanding on his character, basically.
Right. Right.
It's kind of like in Magic where they have a one color planeswalker and then they do something crazy and like, oh, now they're two colors,
Yeah.
watch out.
Yeah, yeah. So that was always interesting to think like, okay, maybe any of the first 8 heroes that don't have a talent could come back later with a talent and expand their card pool that way. So interesting indeed. So speaking of Dynasty, we got the Soraya, the Light Illusionist ally, which is like the third most expensive card in the set. That Marvel is like over $500 still. But
Crazy.
only Prism in Blitz can play it right now, since she Living Legends out for CC. So, assuming a replacement Light Illusionist hero comes along this year that can actually play with that card, that would be cool.
Yeah, it seems most likely that we would get a light illusionist just because otherwise it's odd that they printed that card. But at the same time, I don't see how an illusionist fits into a set that's supposed to be all about melee combat. The only
Yeah,
thing I can
yeah,
think of, so what could be is maybe it's a hero that is like a majestic, but then story wise, it's kind of like Icelander in Uprising, or wasn't Shiana like in Monarch supposedly part of that story?
well, yeah, and Shiano made it. It was in Uprising as well, as
Or
in one
maybe
of
it
the
was no,
lore.
maybe it was Maybe it was Uprising.
Yeah. And
Uh,
well, when Everfest came out, they dropped in Icelander. And with a supplemental set, there's not really lore. There's not really a story that they have to match it up with, which again is why I would expect maybe with the middle of the year supplemental, they just drop in heroes to fill it out. Because you don't need to add cards necessarily to go along with the hero. But I guess they could
Well,
do
I
that.
mean, they could do that with a draft set too. They could just say from a story standpoint, like, oh, this person was fulfilling X minor role, kind of like Shiana did in,
Hmm.
what was it, Uprising?
Yeah. And hey,
And
if
I
their
don't think,
story writing is skilled enough and flexible enough to just drop in 2 extra heroes in a way that doesn't feel cheesy, man, that's cool.
well, I mean, they kind of already did that, right, with Shiana. I honestly, I don't even know what role that she really had. Do you?
No, she was just there. She's just
That's
like
what, yeah.
just like behind
But
the scenes, moving
were
along.
there any cards that mentioned her involvement at all? Do
I
you
don't.
know?
That's a good question.
Now we've got homework for next
Yeah,
week.
yeah. Our like uh, our immense audience. Tell us what we missed about the Shiana story.
I feel like there has to be something
We did
because,
see that
they've
with
hidden
like some
stuff.
of the cards mentioned the spider, and then Arachne came out in Dynasty, and like there's like, oh, that's what all this flavor
Well,
text was
yeah,
for.
did you see somebody on Twitter posted just recently the card Scar for Scar, there's like this ribbon that has blue writing on it. And then the blue ribbon, if you zoom in and look really close, it actually says Ira of Mysteria. Did
Oh,
you see
really?
that?
No.
Yeah. And
Huh.
they posted that just recently, and Welcome to Wraith came out, what, like
Wow.
years ago?
Right? How
3 years
many
ago.
how many little bits of story are in the art that you just can't really see because, it's
I
low
bet there is.
resolution.
So that's the homework, is we need to figure out why Shiana was tied to Uprising.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
people have probably already figured it out, and we're just
Yeah.
ignorant,
That,
but that's
yeah.
okay.
You gotta go find a lore podcast. I'm sure there's a few that have already covered it. All right. The other big news was James White dropped some organized play information. Let me, if I can make this font larger. There we go. So a little bit summary. There were almost 41,000 armory events last year. That feels like a lot.
A lot.
And we've seen the 12 callings cover. I mean, man, worldwide game. Sometimes we saw how World. Some people complained about the location, basically being an airplane hangar with no bathrooms. But this is a small company in New Zealand trying to have a worldwide reach, and man, that's a lot. That's a lot. If you haven't seen this article, they do talk about mistakes that they made. They're going to keep the organized play structure pretty much the same with the 4 tiers. They're throwing prize money again, keeping it $1 million as for the total, but with some new changes as far as like, yeah, getting this stuff down as far as logistics. When when you're a company saying the number one goal of your game is to play in the flesh and blood, well, you better be really good at making that experience something people enjoy.
I feel like they already were doing a really good job with organized play personally. I mean, I didn't get a chance to go to a lot of the like bigger events last
Hmm.
year. But I went to a few skirmishes and ProQuest and things like that, and I really enjoyed that. I felt like I pretty much constantly had a nice pacing of time to try out kind of weird, wacky stuff, and then time to lock in on kind of a real deck, even though I never actually lock. I always do wacky stuff anyway. And then,
it's the trademark,
refine the
yeah.
deck, and then, and then now you've got your tournament season to go to. Like I love the pacing of last year.
Hmm.
I was surprised to see that they were changing the pacing at all. I think they said they were like condensing the schedule of
Yeah,
things.
I'm gonna in my opinion, I think they're taking feedback from their top 10%, the people who,
The people that go to every event
yeah,
probably would be.
and have to book plane tickets, stay in
Mhm.
hotels, and if you were churning and you didn't place top 8 regularly, like you didn't get compensated enough to do all this
Yeah.
travel.
That's that's fair. Like honestly, the changes that they made, they won't affect me at all because I usually go to like one of the like skirmishes and ProQuest and stuff per season.
Mm.
So it won't affect me at all. But yeah, I think that makes sense.
So the other news out of here is there will be 3 products next year. And we've got our Outsiders set, which we know is March. We've got a supplemental, or they're calling them expansion sets now, in July probably. Yeah, they labeled kind of a range, and the year is split up into thirds. But there is a national championship again that season in like October, August, September. But then they're doing world championships again with the launch of the next booster for the year in October-ish, probably. So they took a couple of years to do this world championship. I know previously they had done like a big thing in New Zealand. I think didn't Matt Roger didn't he win? Didn't Rogers win that one back in the day? And then they've because of the pandemic, they've taken a little while to get back around to the world championship idea.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, I think that makes sense though, right? Like the pandemic threw everything off, so
yeah,
I don't know.
and I guess I bring it up because I'm a little surprised they want to do like an annual world championship. I don't know if that feels faster
You're
to
surprised they
me.
didn't do a what?
They're already they're gonna do a world championship every year.
Why wouldn't they?
I guess if it's moving around the world, I guess that makes sense. And the way they've got things kind of rotating. So ProQuest 3 is going to be in the United States. The World Championship is probably not going to be in the United States. They haven't said.
Which I think is fine, right?
Hmm. And that's another thing with talking about the robust travel schedule for some of these people trying to be world champion. Plane tickets are not cheap, and if you want to get ready for Worlds and next year it's in New Zealand or in Europe somewhere, which is probably most likely where it's going to be, you know, from my
Well,
our
I think
American
that's
side of
why
things, we're used to not having to go that far.
they made the change to their pricing structure a little bit though, right? Because it means that more players are going to be able to get compensated for consistent, like you top 32 or 64, and then they can kind of roll that into the next trip,
Hmm.
maybe. That's kind of my assumption, but I don't know.
Yeah, and they do have a little bit of a statement here. The travel should be a high point, not a burden, focusing on bringing competitive play closer to home. The national championships, it shouldn't, you know, American players shouldn't have to go to Europe in order to get the points or whatever to get to Worlds and vice versa. Having enough events locally to be able to build that up and then spend the big travel on Worlds. That makes more sense.
I think, yeah, that makes sense too.
Yeah, and putting the prize money deeper into the standings, and as well as if an event is bigger, the prize money is more. So then they get that out to more players, and yeah, hopefully they make good on that because yeah, if I saw a lot of people where like if if they went to not do the big event but to do the side events, like a battle hardened could have like 300 people in it, but then only the top 8 get anything. So that that was a feel bad for a lot of people.
Yeah, I was excited to see that they had a calling in Indianapolis. It's not too far away. I was kind of hoping for like Chicago or Milwaukee maybe, but Indianapolis is not too bad.
Well, these are just like the first third of the year. We could end up with something a little closer to us in the Midwest later.
That's
That'll be
true.
nice. I know Min
Mhm.
Max Games, big into Fab, and around Chicago, they're pulling hard to get as many events as they can.
I'm I'm a little surprised to see that the big events for this kind of thing are all more on the East Coast.
Well, I
It's
guess
kind
if
of
more of your
interesting.
player base is Europe, then that is easier.
That makes sense actually. That's a good point. I'm curious to know if that's the case. I don't know,
Yeah. Although, I
but
mean, they
yeah.
do love Vegas.
So I like Vegas too, to be fair.
But yeah, there are more West Coast locations than Vegas and San Jose. Probably.
Yeah. I like Portland a lot. That's a nice place. Oregon in general is really nice. I also like gardening, as I'm sure we've talked about before, and Oregon is just a really nice, lush kind of place.
Hmm.
Um, or at least by the coast. Eastern Oregon, maybe not as much, but I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Cool. So the future of Fab 2023. You want to be getting to some of these events next year? What's your goal for 2023 Fab?
I mean, I think continuing to work on Talishar is a lot of fun for me personally. I've been learning a lot of stuff about even, programming.
Hmm.
I've been programming for over 20 years, but I'm still learning stuff, like a crazy amount of stuff. So I'm excited for that. I would like to try to get to one of these bigger events, like maybe even the one in Indianapolis. Um, I don't even know if I would try to participate in the calling, to be honest. I think I might just go and do the side events,
Hmm.
but I don't know. I'd have to look more into the logistics of that. Um, yeah. Going to armories, going to skirmishes, ProQuest. I'm excited. I think it'll be cool. What about you, Keith?
Yeah, I think 2023 is going to be a really big growth year for everything related to Fab. Assuming the pandemic is on the way out and everybody's just putting their focus on the future. I think we have a few local stores that really popped off and they have really good groups, but we live in an area that's pretty wide and getting to those stores is hard for some people and newer players. So I think further expanding and establishing our area, because we want it to grow not just for being able to have people to play with, but just, when you get a certain size, you can get events here, and that would be great. And, our area in South Central Wisconsin connects to the area in Milwaukee, and there's a lot of players there, and connects to the players in Chicago, and we've got kind of this really big nexus of a lot of fab, and, you know, just continuing to push that forward and bring players in. Um, and it's been an interesting, steady pace of adding people. You know, Flesh and Blood is not for everyone, and we've certainly thrown it at every person we know. And we've had
It's
you get people to buy in, they play, and it's just not for them. The
It's really
competitiveness.
interesting. It's really interesting anytime a new person shows up to the LGS. And a lot of the times somebody will come and it's just tough because like I've said before, it's pretty easy to just get smoked and then, we'll try to do like more games after the armory is over that are a little bit more casual. But a lot of the times, like it's really sad, but you'll see him once and then never again.
Hmm.
But then every once in a while, there's this one person that comes and they get smoked, and they're like, "Man, this is awesome! This game has so much depth to it. I wanna learn how to
Right,
beat people."
right. And
And so
maybe
yeah, it
there's a
just
value to that where you don't want to string people along to find out, a few months later after they've spent a few $100 on stuff that they're like, man, this really isn't for me. But yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's true. It's one of the best and worst things about Fab, I think, is like it is really hyper competitive, and so for the people that really like that, it's amazing.
Hmm.
But it does turn people off, right? And so that's where, speaking of what are you looking forward to in 2023, PvE mode.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's go. I think,
Hopes and dreams
we
there.
we
Yeah.
need that. And I'm excited for it too because I love those kind of cooperative type games. Probably half of these games over here are all cooperative. So
I was gonna make a joke about your board game wall later. But
yeah,
yeah,
go ahead. You can
anybody, if you're still watching this, comment.
you can
Let
see
us
super.
know what your goals for 2023 are, what you want to do, and if you've got good ideas that have worked to bring players in and get them to see the softer side of Fab, build a community. Let us know. Also, if you're just recognize a board game on Nate's wall and you're like, yeah, that's great, I love that. Let him know. He'll appreciate that.
I would actually. Actually, now that you mention it, I can recognize some of them, but now I don't want, I was gonna spoil them, but now I don't want to because you challenged everyone.
Great, great. All right, man.
I
Well,
think
thanks for hanging out. I know you could talk all day on this stuff, but we just
that's
need to
true.
record more often so we can get it out.
That's fair.
All right. You have a good weekend, everybody out there, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.
See you.